It's taken out of Washington. President Trump's condolence call controversy stretching into day number 2 as the families of more fallen soldiers come forward with their own stories.
White House Chief of Staff General John Kelly is now criticizing Congresswoman Frederica Wilson's account of the call made to the widow of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson. Local 10 D.C. Bureau Chief Ross Palumbo live at the White House with more on this. Ross.
Well, General Kelly not just criticizing Wilson, saying she shouldn't have been on that call, saying that those calls are sacred, but he went on to explain what his role was in the phone call and how his personal experience led to what the president said.
It stuns me that a member of Congress would have listened in on that conversation. Absolutely stuns me. And I thought at least that was sacred.
General John Kelly emotional and speaking out against Representative Frederica Wilson herself hearing the president's call to the widow of LaDavid Johnson.
I heard him say, well, I guess you know he knew what he was signing up for, but it still hurts. And I couldn't believe that he said that.
Kelly himself heard the call and believes the president was appropriate and sensitive.
So he called 4 people the other day and expressed his condolences in the best way that he could.
His own son killed in Afghanistan 7 years ago, and Kelly explained how he personally counseled the president to make the call to the Johnson family.
He knew what he was getting into by joining that 1%. He knew what the possibilities were because we're at war. And when he died, in the 4 cases we're talking about, Niger, my son's case in Afghanistan, when he died, he was surrounded by the best men on this earth, his friends. That's what the president tried to say.
Just before General James Mattis briefing the media on the latest on how Johnson and 3 others died in Niger.
And the loss of our troops is under investigation. We in the Department of Defense like to know what we're talking about before we talk. And so we do not have all the accurate information yet. We will release it as rapidly as we get it. Because we are very proud of our troops. As you know, we investigate any time we have our troops killed.
Meanwhile, Senator John McCain threatening a subpoena to get more information on Niger.
What steps will you take for the community?
It may require a subpoena.
Do you feel the administration's been forthcoming up to this point about what happened there?
Of course not.
Well, 2 days since that phone call happened between the president and LaDavid Johnson's family, the White House certainly is being more forthcoming about that. But Lauren Calvin, if you take the Congresswoman's role out of all this, it still doesn't explain why the family was so upset after the phone call. It was just the president on the phone, remember, that was speaking. General Kelly was listening, but he said nothing. All of the words came from the president, and as you remember, one member of that family saying that the president disrespected their son. No further comment from the president on that part tonight.
And Ross, bottom line, the ambush was 12 days ago. The White House has been pretty quiet about it until all of this controversy.
You know, Lori, the ambush was just over 2 weeks ago, and Sarah Sanders did mention it the day after briefly. There was a prepared statement for the president. It's still unclear why the president didn't release that statement. Sarah Sanders later saying that she decided to make the announcement during the briefing because she thought it would have more impact. But the family members, as you have heard, certainly are not happy with how this was handled, and they certainly are not happy that it was only after the media kept pressing the White House and pressing the president that he finally did make that phone call. I can tell you that I personally have been speaking with Sarah Sanders days before that phone call happened, speaking on behalf of the Johnson family, asking her when that phone call was going to come, and it was day after day after day until he finally made that call on Monday.
So many questions, so few answers. Our Ross Palumbo live for us at the White House. Ross, thanks a lot.
Our live team coverage of the war of words between President Trump and Congresswoman Frederica Wilson continues now with our senior political reporter, Michael Putney.
He caught up with the Congresswoman today and joins us live now from Northwest Miami-Dade with more. Michael.
Calvin and Lori, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson didn't set out to pick a fight with President Trump, but now that she's got one, she's not backing down.
He's not a compassionate man. He's not a compassionate president. And it's very sad that he's not, because the nation depends upon him to comfort them.
Maisha Johnson and her family certainly needed comforting words as the casket containing the body of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson came home. The president says he provided them.
I had a very nice conversation with the woman, with the wife, who sounded like a lovely woman, did not say what the congresswoman said.
The Miami congresswoman was in the car with the Johnson family and heard the conversation between the president and Maisha on speakerphone. You're not going to walk back your comments about what you heard.
Why should I walk back my comments when everyone in the car also heard the same thing and have said that they heard the same thing? Walk them back to where?
Congresswoman Wilson is, of course, a die-hard Democrat. She has never been a fan of Donald Trump's. She was here at Miami-Dade College North this afternoon for a hearing on those deaths at the Hollywood nursing home. She left before we could ask her about these remarks. The criticism by General John Kelly, he says she should never have revealed the contents of that private conversation. He said that conversation in the car was even sacred. We're live in Northwest Miami-Dade. Michael Putney, Local 10 News.
Okay, Mike.